Hey everybody, I'm Philip.
And I'm Justin.
And together we are Pajamas. And we are on episode 6 in season 4 of Doctor Who. Last time we left off, we had the planet being saved again from the Sontarans. But then at the end, as Martha was saying her goodbyes to Donna and the Doctor, the TARDIS slams shut. And it is going wherever it wants to go. I have a theory.
This is very interesting. It's acting outside of the Doctor's orders.
Yeah, I have a theory. We'll see if it comes true. If it does, it'll be very, very, very interesting. See how it plays out. All right, do you want to get started?
Yes.
All right.
Let's get started.
We're going to do just that. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Oh, I love this bit. I thought you wanted to go home. I know, but all the same. What are you doing to him?
Everyone gets processed.
Oh, it's taking a tissue sample.
Who is she?
Well, she's my daughter.
Well, I called that all wrong. Holy crap.
This is amazing.
It's interesting, for sure. Not quite what I wanted to see, believe it or not. I would like to have seen that dynamic. But, all right. Martha's kidnapped again.
They sealed off the tunnel,
They were trying to kill us.
but they got my friend.
Collateral damage.
They stole a tissue sample at gunpoint. It's not what I call natural parenting.
Rubbish. My friend Neris fathered twins using a turkey baster. Don't bother her.
You're no better than him. I have a body, I have a mind, I have independent thought. How am I not real?
Life, and that would be.
In the beginning, the Great One breathed life into the universe.
Hang on, a second ago it was peace in our time. Now you're talking about genocide.
For us, that means the same thing. I won't have them spreading treason. And if you try anything, Doctor, I'll see that your woman dies first.
No, we're not a couple.
Drawing up strategies like a proper general.
No, I'm trying to stop the fighting.
Isn't every soldier?
Technically, I haven't got time for this. Donna, give me your phone. Donna, will you tell her?
Oh, you are speechless. I'm loving this. You keep on, Jenny.
We're not going anywhere.
What?
You belong here with them.
She belongs with us. With you. She's your daughter. In 3D? Oh, you're a clever hack. So this is where everybody's headed. Big radiation spikes.
Protecting from what?
Oh, I don't know. Men like you.
I'd like to see you try that. I have picked up a few womanly wiles over the years.
Save your wiles for later, in case of emergency.
He's going to die.
Beautiful.
Are you an anomaly too?
No.
Oh, come on, but you're the most anomalous bloke I've ever met.
Here it is.
Oh, that's never good. Aww.
We're friends, that's all. I mean, we're not even the same species. There's probably laws against it.
And what's it like, the travelling?
What's she going to do? Cramp your style? Like, you've got a sports car, she's going to turn it into a people carrier. Something I've never told you before. I think you're wrong.
You can drive transport. It's a spaceship.
Well, the original one. Year, month, day. It's the other way around, like it is in America.
7 days since war broke out.
This war started 7 days ago. They said generations. And if they're all like you, and they're products of those machines...
They could have 20 generations in a day.
Yay! Sounds a bit like the Suntar in general. Oh.
I'm the Doctor, and I declare this war is over.
No!
Jenny was the reason for the TARDIS bringing us here, which then created Jenny in the first place. Paradox. An endless paradox.
I can't do this anymore. You'll be the same one day.
Not me.
Goodbye, Dr. Jones.
Hello, boys.
Where are you going?
I've got the whole universe. Planets to save, civilizations to rescue.
It's wonderful.
There's a lot.
Yes.
A lot going on in this one. Holy crap. I don't know where to begin.
And reference to a creation myth.
Yes.
Very much, actually. 7 days,
Mm-hmm.
a garden, a tragedy happening involving mortality.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Doctor being God, bringing about the new world.
Oh, yeah. I always like the parallels between modern day mythologies and then when they do stuff like this, like they just believe what they believe, but they didn't know why they believed it. They just believed it. I love the twist of finding out that it was only 7 days. So I'm guessing spin-off series for Jenny? I don't know.
I'd be interested to see that.
That seems very random. I think it would have been more powerful had she died and or regenerated, but she exhaled that stuff. So I thought at first that it was going to attract. Remember when in the Christmas one when the Doctor was healing
Mhm.
and he was exhaling that stuff and it attracted those creatures for the invasion.
Mhm.
I thought that's where they were going with that. Apparently not. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe it does in the future. We had a crisis of what makes a person really a person. You know, whether they are a human person or a Time Lord person, what makes them legitimately a person. And the Doctor's struggle with,
His past.
well, you know, just seeing her as a thing. At first, just seeing her as a thing and not a person. We find out later, yes, because of his past and why.
Of why he would want to only see her as a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because he killed that part of himself. Well, that part of himself died when they did. So he couldn't resurrect it, he thought. So it was a good internal struggle with the Doctor. And once again, Donna being the conscience of the show, you know, being the silver lining, the positivity and stuff like that.
It's also a foreshadow of what life could be like in the future. This machine could actually be a real thing someday.
And I do like the idea that it was a paradox. Jenny brought them there, but then they made Jenny. So it's like a never-ending loop of a paradox. So yeah, it was rather enjoyable overall. As you said, the biblical overtones were cool. I like how they took it and twisted it and molded it. Not twisted in a bad way, just molded it into something different. But the parallels and the similarities are, of course, there. It echoes a lot of my own personal beliefs on religions and stuff like that. So I like the idea that it was just this regular thing that was canonized into something else. It was just a terraformer the whole time.
Still, nevertheless, a wonder in its own right.
Yes. I mean, it's making life. So yeah. So I mean, so it technically is the breath of life, like they were saying.
Poeticized into the form of a myth.
Exactly. And then turned into something to revere and worship.
Yes, like the doctor said, there's a degree of truth of what this breath of life is.
Yeah. Which also correlates to Jenny coming back to life, the breath of life. So it works on many levels. So it was, again, a well-written episode. If I was going to nitpick anything, I would say that the ending, I don't know about. Well, I don't know where it goes, obviously. But on paper, I'm like, did she need to come back to life and steal the spaceship and jettison off into space?
I'd like it if they were to meet each other again.
Yeah, so that's the positive side of it, that they could cross paths again, so she's out there in the lore still. But I think it would have been more impactful had, like, you know, there's another sacrifice. I'm not saying we need like things to be like tragic or sad all the time, but I think it was such a powerful moment that, like when we in another show we watched, no spoilers, when you retcon a very powerful emotional moment, it makes it feel less than. Now, this isn't on that level that I'm referring to, because this happened in the same episode. But I think the final shot being Jenny sent off in whatever manner that the Hath and the humans dictated would have been a cool partying shot. But we have what we have, and we'll see where it goes. Because as you said, we have that to look forward to. A potential meeting again, you would think. If he was not a man with morals, he could have just taken that machine and repopulated. The Time Lordian species could have been reborn
in some sort of way, though.
I mean, I'm sure he could,
like he said, shared history, shared
experiences. Well, he could alter the machine, I would think. So they weren't just like soldiers popping out of there. I'm sure he could alter them to be like more like him. So
maybe.
It's interesting what a doctor with less scruples would have done with a cloning machine. I think the doctor, how do I word this? Like I mentioned earlier about a tragic thing being undermined by a resurrection of sorts. I do think that if he were to do that, it would undermine everything he went through and everything that he lost. I think he accepts Jenny as his daughter at the end, but if he were to amass a, colony of Time Lords, it would still be manufactured, possibly to him.
Yes, though at the same time, like the subject of cloning, exactly what is it that would make this or that person less of a person?
Yeah, exactly.
I made this piece of paper with electricity. I made this piece of paper without using electricity. They're both pieces of paper.
Paper doesn't have thoughts. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't have a consciousness. It doesn't, like Jenny was saying, I have, I'm a person, and
an identity.
Yes,
already beginning to form.
Yes.
And how interesting that she also can speak English.
Well, everyone can, except for the Hath. I like that Martha could like haphazardly understand them.
Yes, I was curious about how she was able to communicate with them. Mm-hmm. Though it probably helped that although she may not have been able to understand them, they were able to understand her.
Yeah. And pantomime enough that they could figure out the gist of what was going on. Yeah. Once again, Martha gets kidnapped or taken, but that worked out for the best. Like, I knew that it was going to somehow be some kind of misunderstanding, and or the humans instigated it and they were just like defending themselves or something. That's what I thought was going to happen at first, that we became so ravenously war hungry, like there was a commodity or something, that a mineral, some kind of liquid or just something that was the
usual reason for going to war.
Exactly. So
access to resources.
Yes, but the resource could be anything is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be like any kind of like oil, or it could be anything. And I thought that we were going to be like, we got overzealous like we usually do. We somehow think we have ownership of things because we have some kind of right to them, as be it humans or a country you're from or what have you. Not going down that rabbit hole, but I did think that it was going to be something where, almost like the Ood, kind of, where the Hath weren't the bad guys or the bad species after all, and it was in fact humans that were the ones that were instigating everything and they were just defending themselves. But humanity's need for war would prevail over everything. So, but thankfully it was just, I guess they arrived on the ship together and there was some, like, their maid people died, and 7 days later, here we are. But it was a really good episode as far as a character study for the Doctor.
Oh, another reference. Evolution is also involved in this. The Hath.
Yeah.
The aquatic beings that came out of the water.
Right.
Like the first life forms that eventually became the land living beings. So there's even that intertwined with it. And of course, there they are in front of their faces.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew when the one Hath went with Martha that he was going to die. I was like, he had red shirt written all over him. That was so sad. Like, it's like, aw. She helped him and he wanted to help her, and he did. And the sound of his little thing breaking as he went on. That was sad. And yes, of course, a new species, the Hath. So we have another new species in our Doctor Who universe, at least.
Environmentalism in this, that humanity realizes that it isn't the only species on this planet. It needs to share this world with others.
Well, I think they knew that they weren't the only species on the planet.
Well, yes, but that's the message.
Ah, okay. Yeah. We can coexist with other people who are not like us.
And also other life forms that aren't necessarily human.
Yes, exactly. So all kinds of messages and stuff. This one was chock full. It's chock full of stuff. This was like a big old casserole just full of stuff. It was hearty and filling. It was tasty. There's a lot of stuff going on inside. A lot to bite down and chew on. Full disclosure, I'm suffering from a massive migraine. So I'm doing my best to. I feel like I'm going to do this episode a disservice when I edit it. I'll be like, man. So sometimes I add in text. So I may add in text if I didn't touch on something I wanted to, just throw that out there. But we want to get this done. We don't know what time we have. We only have one day. We don't know how much in this day we're allowed to access. So yes, weathering the storm, soldiering through it like I always do. And
soldier.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, there you go. Mr. Associations.
This episode is full of meaning.
See, it's a big old meaningful casserole. But yeah, this was just, like I said, a really cool character study on the Doctor. I like ones where everyone has something to do. It wasn't as grand as the last episode as far as giving everyone something to do, but it didn't need to be. Not every episode has to be like that. But we had Martha, we had Jenny, we had the Doctor, we had Donna, we had main soldier dude. We had other soldier dude who got seduced. silly heterosexual men. Genuine escaped on my watch.
Could this also be a reference to what the Doctor basically does when you mentioned that when he needs to find a companion, that's basically what he's doing, but not sexually speaking?
Not like that. I think people take my seduction and wooing thing a little too. I just think he definitely has an MO. We talked about it in the last 2 episodes. I gave examples, so maybe on some level, but I didn't correlate those 2 things together. But maybe it's in his DNA to be like ooh about things.
It would have been one explanation of how she was able to do that, as if it came to her naturally.
Yeah, because she was like a clone. So why would she know about sexuality and
all that?
Yeah,
at least according to the people that were working the machine, all that they know is warfare.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Yeah, you bring up a really good point. Like, why did she know to do that? Because she would have no concept of anything like that. So yeah, that's a really good observation.
They were born to fight, born to die.
Yeah, that's it, and that's it. And nowhere in there does it say
also coochie-cooing with others.
Yes, yeah. To get out of a jail cell. Like when Donna's like, I like to see you do that. Like, me too.
I'm sure that many would.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something to think about. What if the guard had been a female? Another female? I'm sure a lot of dudes would have been happy about that. You know, but what if the clone had been male? What if it was Jim instead of Jenny?
That is interesting.
How big of balls will the show have? I mean, we're just now really starting to see big strides as far as inclusion. So I could see something like Doctor Who doing that, but it's also how much outrage would you make? Because it's supposed to be like there's a debate among Whovians I've seen in comments. Some see it as a kid's show, some don't. I can see it both ways.
It could be something that's for all ages.
I think it's a family show more than anything. And I'm not saying family values, because that is it's a buzzword. It's another myth that people make to, kind of oppress people with their ideals from usually their own mythology. I said I wasn't going to go down the rabbit hole, and I'm not.
It's too easy. We aren't here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Doctor Who.
It pertains to Doctor Who. So yes, it's just something amusing to think about, like what the reaction would have been in 2000 and what are we in 8 now, I think. But back to the show. And there was lots of good quotes. I have many written down in my notes. I have 3 pages of notes. I took a lot of notes in this one.
Let's get started with them.
Okay, let's go to the notes.
Philip's notes.
So we touched on after Jenny is created, and we find out she's his daughter. In a manner of speaking, she says, "What makes you better than me?" And that's a really interesting notion to think about. Like real humanity, a real version of the species, a real person, when he just sees them as like, the machine is just progeniting new soldiers, and that's it. So it's like a
sort of biological prejudice.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. Like you weren't created the natural way. You were created in a machine. So there's a lot of debate here. Like I could see this episode really being debated in like an ethics class to bring it from Time Lord to human, just for a second. Humanity. What makes a human human? If we make a human in a lab, how less human is that than someone who's created through actual birth? And I think it's a really cool subject to bring up, and it opens up a lot of different ideas. And
yes, we could even go to something that's sort of in the middle, in which, well, the beginning parts were in a laboratory, but were then put in for the rest of the development. By that I mean in vitro fertilization.
Yeah, but I'm strictly correlating it to what we saw.
Yes.
We make a human out of a machine. How human is that human? That kind of thing.
Yes.
Like in vitro, yes, it's a whole different ballgame, but that's not what we're dealing with here.
Yes.
We're not dealing with a halfway. We're dealing with a natural process, like however Time Lords are naturally made before they get sent to the vortex where they go crazy at 8 years old, versus creating one in a machine with DNA. So it's a touchy subject, because then you start bringing in more mythology into it and more, it's like a minefield. So, but still, nonetheless, very fascinating to think about. The main soldier guy is going to lock them up, and he says to take Jenny because she's a pacifist's daughter. Such an interesting way to pacifist, and it's a bad thing. Kind of like now, like we got the warmongering, military industrial complex, and then we have the woke people who are like, this is kind of dumb. Let's put the money to like helping people, not lining the pockets of all the people you elect. Let's move on. I love the back and forth that Jenny and the doctor had when she was trying to rationalize what he was being what she was, and he wasn't accepting it because he's so anti-gun, anti that kind of thing. He says, I'm not like that. I'm trying to stop the fighting. She says, isn't every soldier? I was like, ooh,
yes.
Good line.
They aren't doing this simply for fun.
And then she says, you've even got a weapon. I was like, damn. That was, I really like the, just these moral and ethical and all of it. Like, it's just really cool stuff that they brought up. And then Donna has the doctor listen to her heartbeats. But he says, you're an echo. A Time Lord is so much more. So again, he's not seeing her in the natural progression of what a Time Lord is. She's just a copy. She's just a piece of paper. And I was like, right here is the potential future of the Time Lords. Potentially. but the doctor can't accept it. And I think before the reveal of why in the family, I wrote, maybe he's just used to being alone. He almost needs to be the last Time Lord now. Because that's what he's used to. Because he sacrificed everything. And that is his identity now, is being the last Time Lord. And I don't mean it like in a bad way, or he's trying to romanticize it, or oh, the last Time Lord, like, nothing like that. Almost like Stockholm syndroming yourself.
That's a very interesting perspective.
And he needs that. He needs that new base he has, because the old one crumbled, and he sacrificed everything for what he is now. And then we find out, again, that Jenny reminded him of the people he lost, and so it fits in. But a lot of powerful stuff going on. Then she asks, "You fought and killed?" "Yes." "Then how are we different?" It's really well done at making the doctor see himself in a way that he didn't want to. Because we said before, he's bossy. Yes, he is arrogant. I think it's neat that Jenny was a mirror to the doctor, but she was a more militant, where he tries to give choice and tries to find the most peaceful resolution possible. So it was a cool, again, dichotomy of two different ideals, but the same thread. It was like the coin. They're the same coin. They're just two sides of that coin. So really neat. I thought Martha going to the surface was a little like, be careful. So I was like, look for a gas mask or something, please. But no, she was fine.
Personally, I liked how it looked outside.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I liked when Jenny asked, "What are Time Lords for?" Like, what are you for? What is your purpose? What is your mission? Like,
the function, why you're here instead of not existing at all.
Well, it was such a cool way to, like, how would a new soldier try and process, something that she is related to?
Yes, and she knows that the different chains of command, well, this is the one that does this, this is the one that does that.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly are you for?
But also, like, they're for fighting the Hath.
Mm-hmm.
The Hath are for fighting the humans. What is a doctor for? Like, what is his belief? Like, what's his crusade, basically? And it's just to explore with, companions.
He makes his own destiny.
Unless the TARDIS decides otherwise. It's like, yes, we're going to go see your daughter. And then I've talked before that Donna is the conscience of the show right now. And he says to her, "I told you, nothing but a soldier." And she says she's trying to help, when she was trying to buy them time. And so it was a cool, again, Donna trying to get through to the doctor. She kept doing it too. She was like, stop, talking about her, like,
belittling her.
Just being dismissive.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have the turn for Jenny. She does her little backflips through the laser field. Hugs her. "Brilliant. You're brilliant." And then she says, "I didn't kill him. I could have, but I didn't." There you go.
Instead, what she did was buy them time by shooting the ceiling.
Yes. Then we find out that she reminds him of the family he lost. And he says that feeling will never come back. And Donna's like, it might. She says, "I'm going to say something to you that I've never said before. You're wrong." I'm like, go Donna. We find out that the temple is a spaceship kind of thing. Like, just this, big landing pad. I like the line when the doctor says that they mythologized their entire history. And I'm like, that sounds so familiar.
Well, yes. What can I say? Pretty much every major civilization has done that at least once.
And then I have grown as a nitpicker, even though some of you out there don't think so. 3 seasons ago in season 1, when the doctor said, "I'm the doctor, and I declare that this war is over." Smashed. I would have ranted about that. Not gonna. I just want to throw that out there that, evolution. It can happen.
It reminds me of him putting his finger.
Oh, don't even give me that. Yeah.
Somehow.
Fingers to lips. I think that's probably one of my least favorite lines in the entire show so far. I absolutely hate that scene so much.
And somehow everyone is going by what this one person is saying.
But yeah, but like you were saying, he's like this god figure now. He smashed the thing, he's bringing life, so it makes sense in this context. It was just funny. I thought to myself, I was like, in season 1, maybe even season 2, I would have kind of, it would have been a burr for me that I would have kind of ranted about.
That somehow these beings were made, and they only know this. This is basically all that they know, warfare, and they're going to stop simply because he said that it's over?
I mean, they realize now what the source is and what their mythology has been about, and it's about life. It's not about death and using it as a weapon. It's not a weapon. So I can see them being like, okay, this isn't what we thought it was. Let's lay down the guns. Because it looked like the newer generations were the ones going first, and the original soldier guy was like, nah, I'm going to shoot. And then we had to watch the doctor as he held Jenny and watched his family die again. Which is why the ending doesn't bother me. I didn't hate it. I just don't think it was really necessary unless they're going somewhere with it in the future. If we don't ever see her again, this was absolutely 100% the wrong ending to go with. No spoilers, please.
It's what made the "he is not alone"
death
scene very powerful.
Yes, exactly. And then we see the doctor pick up a gun. And that was huge. I was like, damn. Especially after they hammered home in the last 2 episodes how he hates guns. How much he hates guns. And just seeing him pick one up was like, whoa.
Yes, something very human-like with emotions, that having this desire to destroy what was taken away from him again.
Yeah.
And he could if he wanted to, but he won't.
Yeah, use it as like an example.
Yes.
I would never do that. Violence is not the answer.
He really could have if he wanted to. Nobody was stopping him at all.
Mm-hmm.
They were simply standing there watching.
Yeah. And, on paper, either the real or cloned piece, he could be justified for reacting, but he used it to teach a lesson. And that is all for my notes. Everything else are for my patrons over on Patreon. This was a nice episode.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. There was like I said, there was a lot going, like the last one had a lot going on too. But this one just had a lot going on in just ethics and...
Like an onion, there were layers and layers.
Like an ogre. That's like an onion. There are layers. I like when the writing is complex. I like when it brings up difficult subjects. I like when it tackles ideas that aren't just like, good and evil. And that's what this was.
Something that we're actually very used to because, well, ever since childhood, we've been told that same plot over and over again of good and evil.
They were dancing that line with the Hath and the humans, but
unlike childhood stories, it shows that actually it's more complicated than that.
It always is. Yep, it always is. I could go. This is one of those triggering episodes for me because there's so many rants and rabbit holes I could go down. I've stopped like 4 of them so far. Be proud of me. Things are never what they appear, and if you're told something is the way it is without seeing the other side of what's being talked about, I guarantee 100% that's not the way it is. It's being shown through some kind of skewed view of things to make it look that way on purpose. And I will leave it at that. And that's a cool thing about this episode. It just brings up all these things that you could apply to not just modern times, but like you could pick a point anytime in our history and apply these things to what's going on, from mob mentality to not knowing what's really going on, to being told what to believing the wrong thing, to taking something at face value when maybe you shouldn't, all that kind of stuff and more. There's more to it. And yeah, it's very cool that the show tackled something like this in the way that they did. And yeah, I was very impressed. And future me editing this, if we have forgotten anything, I'm sorry. I hope we added it back in. As far as present you, is there anything else you'd like to add? All right. Well, it's going to wrap this one up. As always, I don't have a fancy outro. So we will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.